A few years ago, this is how I felt about our budget.
And today, just a few years later, this is how I feel about our budget. Really, I love it. It's close to my heart. It's fun to budget. My budget is now freedom. The funny thing is, this is the exact same budget as before. The amounts are a little bit different, yeah, but what's changed really is how we think about the budget and what we do with the budget once we have it. We're Mike and Stephanie, and we blog over at sixfiguresunder.com to help people make good financial decisions, get out of debt, and love their budgets. This is day 14 of our Frugal Fresh Start Challenge. You can see the rest of the videos in the playlist below.
We do love our budget now, and you can love yours too. Today we're going to show you the secrets to learning to love your budget and make it a tool that works for you, erases money stress, and guides you through decisions perfectly reflecting your own priorities. This shouldn't be a secret, it should be what everyone's doing. But most of us learn about budgeting, if we learn about budgeting at all, in a completely backwards, upside down, and inside out sort of way. Learning to love your budget isn't even hard, it just takes a few minutes to sweep away all your bad old thinking about budgets and change your life in a seriously big way.
There were two big reasons I used to hate budgeting, and talking to many people since then, it seems like these are two big ones for lots of people. See if this sounds familiar to you. Big reason number one. A budget felt limiting, restricting, constraining, like chains or handcuffs or a big red stop sign around every corner. My budget was the master, and it told me what I could and couldn't do. And most of the time it never did anything. But when it did get involved, it was always to get in the way of something I wanted. And that's no fun at all. Big reason number two. There's no way to win with a budget. The game was rigged. You wrote down what you thought you should spend in a certain category every month, say $100 on gasoline, and then you never actually spent $100. You might spend $86 or $112, but if you spent less, you had this weird leftover money. If you spent more, you felt like a failure. Who wants to play a game you can never win?
And that's kind of how we started. We had seen budgets before, and we figured they were just a list of things that you might spend money on, and you wrote down how much you were allowed to spend in each category of things.
At the time, our income was low, and our expenses were mostly limited to rent and food and the occasional thrift store purchases, so what did it matter? It honestly wasn't until the next month that we thought much about the budget at all. Then we pull it back out to see if we had met our budget, whatever that meant, and we hadn't. We had failed miserably. Except for those fixed expenses like rent, which never changed, there was not a single category where our spending matched the number we had put down next to the category.
After a few months of this, we just dropped it all together. Our budget seemed so distant from our real life. It wasn't helping us manage our money, it was just a source of frustration.
Does this sound like you? Have you ever tried to set up a budget and then let it go and it just didn't seem to have much relevance, or it was just frustrating? It wasn't until we were introduced to the YNAB method of budgeting that we finally got it. And it was awesome and life-changing and still awesome.
Our introduction to real budgeting was through the training videos that were a part of the YNAB budgeting software that we started using. YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. And about 6 years ago, a friend recommended YNAB to us for our budget. The software tool itself is pretty neat. We still use it, but the budgeting philosophy we learned was phenomenal.
So even if you don't use YNAB software, you can turn around your budget thinking and follow the same principles using any software or your own spreadsheet or just a paper ledger. As a matter of fact, we're going to do this right now with cash money and a bunch of plastic plates.
One of the secrets of happy, successful budgeting is that you budget money that you already have and budget every penny of it. YNAB calls it give every dollar a job. So every time you get a paycheck, you assign each one of those dollars to a category in your budget, just like we talked about on day 7.
So here's our budget. We have $3,250 available to assign to our budget categories. And since you can't easily see the amounts on the plates, I made a handy table that shows how we're planning to spend it. Actually, the money in our budget plates is only $325 because that's all the cash we could scrape up around the house, but we're going to pretend like it's 10 times that.
The next secret to happy, successful budgeting is to spend according to your budget categories, including categories that you don't use every month. Spending according to your categories may seem obvious, but unless you're carrying your budget around with you and actually changing the amounts as you pay for things, it's actually not as easy as it looks. Some people do really well using envelopes with cash for each category. When they make a purchase, they take dollars out of the corresponding envelope so the amount left is automatically reduced. It works really well for people, and if it works well for you, that's great. We prefer keeping track of our spending category balances on apps on our phones.
YNAB does this really nicely. So we make a budget and we spend according to the budget categories. Those are good and necessary steps. But it was a different part of the YNAB philosophy that blew our minds. The YNAB people call it roll with the punches. In effect, it means your best guess on the first day of the month was just a best guess. If you're doing this right, your budget will look differently by the end of the month than it did when you started. And this is the key. Your budget is flexible.
After all, you don't do the exact same things every month. Your life changes, so your budget should change with it.
As long as you're spending dollars you actually have, you can reallocate them any way you want, as many times as you want, any time of the month that you want, to match your priorities. So let's go over an example. Here's our budget again. Here's some budget on paper. Here's the budget in our little plastic plates.
What happens if, out of nowhere, we decide we're going to get a dog this month? This actually happened today, or nearly happened. It might happen next week, but don't tell the kids.
So our budget doesn't include a dog category. At the first of the month we weren't thinking about dogs, but priorities change. Some friends are moving and they need a home for their beautiful border collie. Our kids have wanted a dog for years. I always had a dog growing up. I want a dog. We have most of what we would need for a dog. Basically, it would just be $14 this month for the first bag of dog food. The question is there $14 in our budget that's currently allocated to something less important to us than a dog? So let's say that there is. Having a dog will be as much fun for the kids as a vacation. So we'll take $14 from the vacation fund, that's $1.40 here because of our exchange rate, and put it in the animals fund. Now, we've changed how we're distributing our spending, but we haven't actually changed the total amount that we're spending.
And now we have a dog in our budget. It became a priority and we changed our budget to reflect our priorities. But what do we do now? Because we also have a wedding reception for some dear friends who have been part of our lives for years. We want to bring them a gift, but we don't have a wedding gift category. What can we do?
Just a note, in our real budget, we do have a gift category, but the simplified version, there isn't one. So we need to decide again. The question is buying this gift a higher priority than spending on some other budget category? Maybe it is. They are dear friends and we're so excited they finally decided to share their lives with each other. So what in our budget is less important than, or a lower priority than, this particular gift? Where do we have some room?
Well, how much could we budget in for a wedding gift? Could say $35? Actually, that's silly. We don't even know what we're going to get for them, so let's talk about that first. What should we get them?
We could get them a game and then we could play together in double dates.
Or how about a rice cooker? I really love our rice cooker, especially because it has the delay timer.
What about a book? We've given the Total Money Makeover to several couples, whether they want it or not. And we actually have a new copy on the shelf that we can give them.
We do. We do have a new copy. I have those pie plates, my favorite Pyrex pie plates that we got when we were visiting my grandma in Arizona. I could etch their last name on the bottom, and we could give them the Total Money Makeover and this set of pie plates.
And some of our favorite pie recipes.
Ooh.
That way, we'll have something that we can give them, both the personalized pie plates, the Total Money Makeover book, and some recipes, without even changing our budget. This is a high priority, but it doesn't have to be a budget change.
And that's how it works. You set a budget at the first of the month, and then you change it every time you need to. When we didn't understand budgeting, we failed again and again to meet our budget numbers. What we didn't realize is that only one number matters. If we're budgeting dollars we actually have, then the total spent can't be larger than our actual dollars. Everything in between is a question of priorities.
And looking at our budget as a matter of priorities gives us a chance to think about our choices and make our own decisions. Did we not put enough into the animals category to prepare for an unexpected dog to join us? Well, we'll know if that dog is something we're ready for, at least financially, if we look at our budget and decide there's something less important to us than the dog. So we can transfer funds from that, in this case the vacation category, to the animal category.
And if there isn't, then we know that although we like the idea of a dog, it's actually not time for one right now.
So let's do one more quick example. Our 6-month goal for this Frugal Fresh Start is to pay off $25,000 of extra on our mortgage principal. And that's a really big goal. And we're going to have to find a lot of dollars to do it. But last week, this happened. We had some kitchen sink issues. The faucet was leaking into the cabinet, which was running out into the floor, and that's not great. We decided to turn off the water so it would stop leaking, and that led to this, while we decided to order and then waited for a new faucet. When it came, and I installed it, I found some related plumbing issues under the sink, and well, $199 later, we have a new faucet and a clean sink, and life is wonderful.
But we're out nearly $200 on what we had planned to put toward our extra mortgage principal. That's unfortunate, but it was our decision, not just something that happened to us. After all, we had other options. We could have just left the sink turned off and washed our dishes and filled our pitchers in the utility sink in the laundry room.
Or we could have bought a used faucet from the local Habitat for Humanity thrift store, which I love. They sell secondhand hardware and home repair items.
Or we could have tried to patch up the plumbing with our duct tape and kept using our old faucet.
So really we had a lot of options, but when we looked at them, we made the decision to replace the faucet with a fairly nice one that should last for many years and took care of some other plumbing issues while we were at it. That became our priority. We hadn't planned on it at the beginning of the month, but when it came up, there were things in our budget that were less important to us than getting that new faucet. And we're okay with having $199 less toward our mortgage principal because we're rolling with the punches. We're using a flexible budget to reflect our priorities as they change.
And that's why we love our budget. We use it to tell our money what to do for us. And when we think we might want to make a change, it stops us and asks, hey, are you sure this is the most important thing? If we say yes, it goes to work for us, and we reallocate our money to match our priorities.
And if we say, you know what, you're right. Everything in our current budget is actually a higher priority than this thing that I thought I might want to buy, then the budget is also working for us. It's keeping us on track and keeping us safe.
Some months as we roll with the punches, we end up spending more than we had projected in total and end up with a lower extra mortgage payment. Some months we spend less than we expected and we pay off more of our mortgage that month. Every month though, we set priorities and make initial projections, and then we modify it as the month goes, as real life happens.
So the day 14 challenge is this. Look at your budget that you set up on day 7 and see, are there any changes that you already know you need to make? Don't hesitate to move money around if you need to. In the future you can move money from one category to another anytime the need arises. Just ask yourself, what are your current priorities?
And remember that your budget categories contain real money, so you can't spend more than you have in total.
And that's it for today. We'll see you next time for day 15 of your Frugal Fresh Start.